it's something that's been discussed for quite some time. I would say that it probably started not long into the previous console generation. And then when we moved to, in 2019, we did the feeder intro. So that was done for two reasons. One was obviously the introduction of Formula 2 into the series. We thought it'd be a really cool way to bring Formula 2 in, to do it through the story, and to dip our toe in the water of, well, we're a team who make racing games. Can we do something where characters, emotions, and story are also a key part of it? And I think the confidence we got from seeing how well the characters we received, Devon Butler obviously in particular, proved that we could do that. We needed a long run up to do something like a story mode, and that was only achievable once we split the teams and we had the two teams starting in 2019. So that gave us the opportunity to have the 19 team, when that game was finished, start working on the story for 21. So essentially we started it before Drive to Survive was what Drive to Survive became, and then obviously as Drive to Survive grew and we started to watch more of it, there's certain things that you'll recognise sort of nods to some of the key moments in Drive to Survive. We're very, very excited to see how people react to Breaking Point. I think they'll be quite surprised. I think when you consider what we did in 19, this is night and day ahead of it. It's so impressive visually. The writing's brilliant, the acting's fantastic, the motion capture's really good. And as I said, as a studio that makes racing games, we work with some other talent to make sure that we hit those goals. We have professional writers and a studio that created the CG assets for us, so it's done properly. If you remember a long time ago, back on the previous gen game, we did have a two-player career, but it was very much just straight a two-player season, without any of the embellishments of what we have in our career. Obviously, career is massively successful, and we know that there's sort of a barrier to entry to multiplayer, in that some of the more casual players certainly get put off by the fact that they're going to get beaten by some of the really quick people, and also it's notoriously challenging. But we always thought people really enjoy playing together with a friend, and the career is super popular and everybody really enjoys all of the game mechanics in the career, and Formula 1 is a team sport, so why wouldn't you want to play with a friend? And that's what we wanted to set out to achieve with two-player career. It's also a case of, there's something quite nice in a game where it's you and a friend versus the game as well. There's something really quite nice about that challenge of taking on the game essentially with a friend. So two-player career was something that we've always had in mind since we had the sort of more simplistic version on previous gen. We've always thought that the career would be a great basis for two players to engage with together and to progress that journey. And also we thought it'd be a really fun mechanic, and it's a really cool dynamic that you can choose to go one of two ways. Obviously you can either start together and stay together, or you can allow the contract system to determine your journey. So you might start together at the same team and then find yourselves deviating, or even start at different teams and find yourself coming together later in the playthrough. So we thought there's lots of interesting routes that the player can take in that. Dave Greco's been doing this for some time now, and it amazes me how quickly he can arrive at, there or thereabouts. It doesn't take you long. He gets good data these days. We get good feedback from the teams and the drivers. So we got a really solid handling model fairly early. Obviously, it's based on what we know of the rules at the time. And until the car's turned a wheel, you don't really know things 100%. But he'd already started making moves on the tyre model to move it towards something a little more realistic. The car now feels a little bit more nimble, a little bit more darty. So it's not as difficult as you think these days. We're pretty good at working out how the cars should perform, how they should feel. We know all the dimensions, the weights and things like that. So we've got a really strong starting point. We've gotten to that level of detail that we didn't have before, in that, there's no rear wing damage, there's rear diffuser damage, they're separate components. We've got the barge boards, we've got the little aero components that sit in front of the wing mirrors. We've got the underfloor, aero as well. And we were joking the other day that even the wing mirrors have an impact. So damage to the wing mirrors can have an impact on the car. And I was just joking with Dave. I said, could it be possible that if you knocked the wing mirrors off, you'd reduce drag and found that you had a higher top speed? And it's like the difference is so minuscule it wouldn't be worth doing. But we've gone to that level of detail. I think that's something that's quite exciting this year. We've actually got a mixture at the moment of feedback coming in. So we're running a closed beta at the moment. which is also shared with the esports drivers and the Formula One teams. So we've already got a meeting booked for next week with one of the teams where we'll get feedback from some of their incredibly senior technical guys. Now, they not only manage the drivers of the team, they also have a very close link with other drivers who are under contracts with the same sort of area of their team. And also their esports drivers, they work incredibly closely with their esports drivers in the same way as they develop their drivers. So we get a huge amount of input. So we've got input coming from the Formula One drivers and the esports drivers from the teams that they're affiliated with. We've got separate information coming back from the esports drivers and the esports organisations that they're affiliated with. We've also got feedback coming from the beta at the moment, which is also giving us some good things to tweak and adjust for the release. So yeah, the amount of feedback we get at the moment is amazing. It's a big undertaking for us, 3 tracks. And also, as you said, we actually came out relatively early and said which tracks we were going to include and which ones we weren't, and which ones we were going to look to add post-launch. And that's because they do take so long. We have to draw a line in the sand as to what we can and can't do. And it's not just the creation of the tracks, it's the training of the AI, the setting up of the racing lines, generating all of the data that goes with it as well. And obviously our tracks have to be built to a really high visual standard as well. We can't really get away with a super rough version of a track because we do like to make sure everything looks as authentic and as realistic as possible. So 3 tracks is a really big undertaking, but obviously we've committed to now delivering Portimao, Jeddah and Imola post-launch, which we're really excited about. An entirely new street track, which looks to, well, they claim it'll be the fastest street track on the calendar. Obviously Imola, which is a classic, and Portimao, which just looks like great fun. I mean, I've played that in other titles, and I think it'll translate really well into Formula One. Yeah, but very much so. I think the biggest change instantly we're obviously having more meetings with more people, but they were for them to come to us and say, look, this is what we've got as EA. What would you like to use? Obviously 21 was never going to be something that we were looking at changing because 21 was significantly into the development. But we got these are the great tools, the great systems, the great back-end things we've got at EA, the great things that we can do for you. Would you like to use them in your titles? And that was really lovely. And that's how it's progressing. We've been offered help and assistance to continue to grow and make Formula One bigger and better. I've got to admit, it really is the quality of Breaking Point. I can't wait to see what people think of what we've achieved there, and whether we've hit like we said, we always wanted people to feel a certain way about Devon Butler, and they did, and we were really pleased with that. We hope that they experience emotion through the journey, and that they understand what we were trying to achieve with it. And I think they'll enjoy it. I think they'll enjoy the on-track experience and the Drive to Survive-esque off-track experience, showing the behind the scenes. But as every year, I'm always equally interested to find out people find the handling model, and to see how the racing plays out, to see how that applies in the esports, to see if it makes it closer again, or how that changes the dynamic between the way that the people race. We touched very briefly on sort of the handling. There's already been feedback from a lot of the esports drivers and teams in that the changes to the tyre model and the aero model mean that the setups that they ran in previous years, where most people kind of felt that similar setups work for everybody, that's not the case this year. So that's really going to mix things up. So those are probably 2 of the things that I'm most excited to see how they mix things up this year.